Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome on a very strange night. So hats off to all of you for getting here. We've got a few empty chairs. Some people from North Wales were coming, and anyone crossing the Pennines, unfortunately, have had to stay their side. But I think the biggest test has been for Warwick, who lives in California and thinks we're all crazy for living here. For those of you that are not aware, and I've just spoken to a lady at the back briefly who said she was ashamed to say she hadn't heard of us, but that's not a problem. We've only been running since 2020, and we're based in County Durham, but we cover the north of England. And basically, we're an equine welfare charity that is powered entirely by volunteers. I'm going to, at this point, mention that we've had a little bit of a test at this venue. Don't think we'll be returning. It's a fact. But the guys that you see in the magenta and navy at the back are all volunteers for us, and they have really worked hard to make sure that we could cover this catering problem. And if you guys don't buy more cakes in the interval, I'll be eating cake till Christmas, okay? So please, please do take a doggy bag home, really important. This isn't going to be an Oscar speech, I promise. We will get this over fairly quickly, but there are a few people I need to mention. Paula, our chairman, took over last September when we lost our lovely chair, Claire Robinson, and it has been an absolute whirlwind. For any of you that volunteer for charities, you will know that it can be a pretty hard slog at times, and we have not stopped. And events like this are just part of our remit going forward. Pammy, my sister, who loses her temper with me all the time, has not done so once in the last 7 days. It is beyond extraordinary, and so I really appreciate that she's managed to keep her cool. Still time. Shawnee, who's on the camera here, I did say last night, he can be really tricky at times. I'll not steal him from Gillian, his wife, but I honestly cannot imagine life without him. He does so much work to help us keep the wheels turning. He's a superstar. And Andy, who is pitched, he looks like he's at a rock concert, helping us out with filming and the lighting, the sound. We've had to build a gazebo over him because, would you believe, there's been a leak in the roof there too. So it's been a little bit of a test today. They've all been pushed to the limits. I'll not make any bones about it. This is a fundraising event. We are under constant pressure to fundraise to keep the wheels turning. It's something that we cannot tell you enough how much we appreciate your support. And with luck, over these 2 days that we've had, and we had a fantastic night last night, it really was great. And I suppose if I'm worried about anything, it's that it can be exceeded tonight, which I'm sure it will be. But these two events should probably cover our expenses for around 50 days, which is huge, it really is. And it also prevents our treasurer from losing sleep and then sending us the WhatsApp messages of doom, telling us that we're sailing too close to the wind, okay? So it really is so important to have support like we have tonight. So give yourselves a round of applause for turning up in this really dreadful weather. I want to do just very quick domestics. The leaky loos are at the back through the doors. There are no plans for a fire alarm, so if something goes off, please allow women and children first, and then the rest of us will find our way out. We are filming, and I think we mentioned that on the email. If any of you do have a problem with being caught for posterity on camera, then do please see Paula in the interval, and we will do something about that. Our lovely new pull-up banners either side of me basically say what it is on the tin. We rescue, we rehabilitate, we rehome, and we educate. And education is a massive part of what we will be doing going forward. The really tough times of the horse crisis 10 years ago, we hope, are past us, when we were taking in little cobs off street corners and tied to lampposts. So now more events like this are on the cards. And for us, we feel that bringing people together from the different areas of the equestrian industry is really important for us to get a united voice and have people together on common ground. So that's what we're here for. We had a lively debate, a lot of humour last night, and I do hope that we'll get more of the same and better. We are keen to hear from you if you want to question after the interval. So please check out with Paula or Beth or any of the guys at the back if you have a question, and then we'll run those after the interval. Not too far off. So, without further ado. Oh, this is a bit fiery. Having proven her prowess time and time again at national championship level, and I checked my stats yesterday, it was about 30 times that we've had a national championship for this lady, whilst juggling a very successful coaching business with her sister Hannah. I feel like something terrible is about to happen. Hard work and patience finally paid off for this breakthrough star of equestrian sport this summer. She has waited in the wings a very long time and got her senior team championship debut at the Paris Olympics, no less. So it was in at the deep end, if ever there was. They're just trying to get me on my toes tonight, aren't they? She did this alongside former pupil Lottie Fry and long-term mentor Carl Hester. The whole achievement made so much more memorable by the fact that Jägerbaum, Bomber, he has lots of names, which as far as I'm concerned means you love the horse when you give them lots of different names, as long as they're pleasant ones. He's a homebred, home-produced, and together they managed to bring home bronze medal success for Britain, which is really the stuff of fairy tales. So let's please give a warm welcome for the entrance of Becky Moody. We'll put her rose between two thorns tonight. Up next, we have someone who I think we all would agree is the greatest showman in equestrianism at the moment. He was born to be on the stage and entertain huge crowds, but he has extraordinary emotional intelligence and is wise beyond his years. I have listened to him, we've been talking about things today, and it is mind-blowing. I feel like I'm sitting with a 90-year-old because he has such wisdom. He's from a Yorkshire farming family who diversified into film work. He is passionate about his large team of Liberty horses. He works like a demon, and he's constantly trying to improve himself and his horsemanship skills. His new venture, BAM, it's kind of typical of him, he likes to make an entrance, aims to open up his method and inspire everyone to use Liberty to have a better relationship with their horse. He is super talented, and I feel the best is yet to come. So please, you're going to love the extraordinary Ben Atkinson. I'm going to tell you, we had some much more soft music last night. Our third team member, who is braving the chill this evening, may not have been known to many of you before this event, but we've been following his work for some years, and we're delighted that he came to the UK and we managed to get him to agree to head a long way north in the middle of December. He's from a long line of horsemen, started back in Australia in New South Wales, and then made his way to the USA to develop his horsemanship skills, and there he stayed. I think finding his wife was part of that decision. His chosen sport was competitive reining. He was the National Reining Horse Association Reserve Champion, and he's also represented Australia twice in 2010 and 2018 at the World Equestrian Games. But it was one horse, Sherlock, he's called, changed the course of his journey, and the rest, as they say, is history. He is an accomplished storyteller. He teaches horses and people in an extraordinary way. He has a Journey On podcast that has a massive following. He is an author. There are many hats this man wears. He's taken himself down an extraordinary path of personal growth, and it's far from over. He now guides people from across the globe. If I told you that he has 150,000 YouTube followers, 30 million views, and these are just some of the numbers relating to the people who wish to understand themselves better and find some attunement with their horses. So please give a warm Yorkshire welcome to the remarkable Warwick Schiller. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Somebody's buzzing. It's bound to be me. Okay. The thing I've lived in fear of today is sort of to have a complete repetition of yesterday, because we obviously want to cover some new ground, but there was some really good stuff that's worth hearing again, potentially. And these guys are such good talkers, it's not going to be the same by any stretch of the imagination. But what I thought would be good is that we still start with, and we'll maybe start with Ben today, is that why horses was the question yesterday. And I also asked, they've all got really solid family support that have taken them through their careers in very different ways. And, taken them through their careers in very different ways. And I think it would be good for you to hear that. So we'll start with that.
So, hello. There we go. So for me, I think it's, the question is, where does it all start? Why horses? I think it would have actually been more spectacular if I ended up not doing horses with my family. I've grown up with such amazing role models in my father and in my grandfather, and that's where it all really begins. So my grandfather is 97 now. He was pulled out of school at the age of 12 to work with horses on the land during the Second World War. And sort of through that is where I got a lot of the inspiration I needed for my training with horses. Yeah? Better with horses than technology, very clearly. So yeah, my obviously with the horses, any horse that was worth its salt was pulling guns or supply wagons, and so what was left were not brilliant. And my grandfather learnt a lot about how to get horses that weren't perfect to do what needed to be done, because of course they weren't getting a bow for Instagram. They were feeding the country, and sort of that's where I got my inspiration for a lot of problem solving, if you like, or I like to think of every horse as a riddle. And that comes from my grandfather, and as well my passion for driving horses. And then growing up with my father, who he started out as they were dairy farmers in arable, and then my wonderful mother, who is, and I'm very sorry, I have to say a bad word here, she was a townie. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. But actually, that was the magic of her coming from a different lifestyle, because growing up, my father and grandfather, they did dairy farming and arable, and my father hated both milking and sitting in tractors. But of course, anybody who knows anything about farming knows that the idea of changing the purpose of the farm is sacrilege. And it was only my mother who was saying, why just change your job? It'll be fine. You could just do horses instead. And Dad was already a show jumper, and he was never John Whittaker, but he was doing well enough that people were asking him for riding lessons. And so it transferred from a dairy farm into a riding school. And then one day a group of people came and they did English Civil War battle reenactments, and they asked if they could have some riding lessons. And then they said, we've been let down for horses. Is there any chance that we could hire the riding school horses to come to battle? And of course, being Yorkshire and wanting to make some money, the 410 and the 12 bore came out of the gun cabinet, and we made flags out of silage wrap and drums out of old milk churns, and the horses were trained and sent to war. And they did so brilliantly that a chap came up at the end of the battle and said to Dad, well, I'd love to hire those horses to do exactly what they've done here on a film set. And thus a business was born. So I grew up in such a strange horse world, where for a normal person, they would think, I can get myself to jump a cross pole because, my friend Sally can jump a cross pole, and that's scary, but it means that I know I can do it. I grew up in this bizarre world where I had 6-foot jacked stuntmen on horses walking around the yard all the time, and I was used to horses being laid down or rearing up on film sets, and so it really was this encouragement to go for it. Then when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I saw the great Lorenzo. For anybody who doesn't know, Lorenzo, French guy, stands on the white horses. Jean-Francois Pignon, French guy, on the floor with the white horses. Of course, Lorenzo having white horses, at the time I had 2 white show jumping ponies, and children's logic, that was all I needed. Obviously, that was the trick. So stood on the ponies, got going doing that, did my first show on them when I was 9 years old, and then apprenticed under a Cossack called Guido Louis from the age of 13 to 16 to learn the Cossack stuff, and then started my own performance team. And that's really where, at that age, up until then, a lot of what I'd done had been focused on stunts, on getting horses bomb-proof, and maybe pulling a rear or a lay down, but humans doing crazy things. And then as I got older, I wanted more and more to fall into the magic of horse training. And that's what opened the doors for Liberty and what I do now.
Super. Yeah.
So luckily, well, yesterday I was lucky and I went first with this story. So I didn't feel intimidated by the fact that I didn't cant around on the back of 2 white ponies. I did once manage to stand on my 10-2 roan called Kelly, but it didn't end well. So no, I mean, I have 2 older sisters. They're 7 and 9 years older than me, and they both had ponies before I was even born. So I think I was probably on a pony when I was still in my mum's tummy, and plonked on a pony very shortly afterwards. And I got my first pony when I was 4, aforementioned 10-2 strawberry roan called Kelly. And we were best friends that did everything together. And I was a super geeky, keen pony clubber. I lived in Scotland until I was 6 and then moved down here and did everything pony club-wise. Dressage, show jumped, evented, quiz team, like absolute boss to the quiz team. Completely horrendous at mounted games, could never vault on, never mind stand on 2 ponies. So never did mounted games. But, you know, I had incredible support all the way through my sort of early career from my family. Pony Club was a really big part of what I did, and I had a very cool pony called Max who I evented, and for a short period of time wanted to be the next kind of, you know, Ginny Lang, Ian Stark. They were the people on my bedroom wall when I was little. But then actually I discovered that I was really not brave enough to do that. And Max also didn't like big fences all that much, but was quite good at prancing around a little bit fancy. So I started more down the dressage route when I had him probably at sort of 13, 14 years old. And then very successfully stole my eldest sister, Hannah. She had a super Highland Cross Connemara. No, not Connemara, Highland Cross Thoroughbred he was. 15-2 called Fred. And he'd been a pony club horse for her, and I stole him and did junior things on him. And he took me to my first European Championships, which was pretty amazing for a Highland Cross Thoroughbred, even in that day and age. And yeah, I continued doing that kind of stuff for some time, and actually left school at the age of 16, which was for my family quite a big thing. I came from a relatively academic family. You know, my dad had been to Oxford, both my elder sisters had been to university. Hannah had gone and done a degree in art. She was amazing, gave all of that up to come home and play ponies. So she'd already started doing that. So I was really lucky that I was so supported by my family when I left school, because it really was all I ever wanted to do. I think probably for about 5 minutes I considered veterinary, but again, yeah, probably not clever enough, and also would have loved the nice, good stuff, not so good with the less good side of it. So yeah, and Hannah and I set up the business and, you know, developed it over a long period of time. Have had many horses along the way that have helped make me into what I am now. I think every horse that you ride teaches you something, so all of them have been such an important part of the journey. But for sure, my family have been a massive part of it, and I think, you know, without them, I definitely wouldn't be doing this in the way that I'm doing it. But yeah, horses just because it was all I ever wanted to do, and family, massive, massive help.
got to turn the microphone on. You know, for me, why horses? So I grew up on a farm, and you know, when we come home from school, that's what we did. We rode our horses, and so didn't spend a lot of time in town playing team sports, that sort of thing. You know, basically get home all the time with our horses. And I guess if you do something for long enough, you get better than the average person at it. And so I wasn't, like at school, I wasn't very athletic at all. You know, when they were going to play rugby, we're going to play soccer or whatever, and they picked two captains, and then those captains picked kids out of the thing. I was always one of the last kids to be picked. So I wasn't a remarkable child in many ways, but it seemed like for me the horses was something that I don't know if I was good at, but I didn't suck at it like everything else. So that might be what drew me to the horses earlier on. And, you know, my parents were very supportive. I've got two brothers, and we all showed horses as kids, and like summer holidays, we'd go to horse shows. You know, that was what we did as a family. And so, and, you know, we lived on a farm, didn't own the farm. Dad worked on the farm, and part of his employment on the farm gave us a house and the ability to have our horses in the paddock there and whatever. So we didn't have much in the way of money, but, you know, my parents did what they could to get us to horse shows, and, you know, that kind of led me, I guess, on the path I'm on now. We showed in like quarter horse shows and stuff, and they used to have this thing called the Youth World Cup team, which is there'd be a team from Australia, a team from the UK, a team from Germany, France, Italy, Canada, America, maybe New Zealand. And when I was a kid, I really wanted to be on that. That's, you know, I really wanted to go to America. And the year I was trying out for it, it was in America. I really wanted to go, and went to the qualifying show and won everything at the qualifying show. I'm like, I'm a dead cert to be on this team, but I wasn't picked on the team. And looking back now, it's because my parents couldn't afford to send me, and they weren't going to pay for it. You know what I mean? The association was going to pay for it. But I always had a desire to want to go to America and learn more about it. Initially, I worked in a bank, and I worked in a bank for 7 years, and they at the time would give you what they would call 12 months leave without pay. So you could take a year off, not get paid, but be guaranteed a job when you come back. And so I took that opportunity and went to America. But, you know, the question, why horses, I think it was in my destiny without necessarily being in the forefront of my mind. You know, like I said, initially I think horses was the one place I could be one of the cool kids, you know.
Can I say, for your next book, I really want to have, you know, I didn't suck at it, but I was all right on the back as a quote.
Horses, I didn't suck at it, is the title of my new book.
Just to delve a little bit deeper into your characters, what personality traits would you say make you good around horses?
Starting with me? So I think I'm going to go the opposite way with that. So, like, for me, with my journey with horses, my natural personality traits are not helpful in any way, shape or form. So I'm quite a enthusiastic, sort of silly, erratic, high energy person. And for anything to do with horses, especially for Liberty work, it's just the worst thing in the world. You know, we might, if we were going to use, you know, older language to describe it, say that I had a hot seat, if you know what I mean. I was always full on and more about me than the horse. And this came to a head at, I went for a clinic with a man called Frédéric Pignon, and he's absolutely incredible French Liberty artist. And to explain a Fred clinic, if he's never met you, then the first thing you have to do is you arrive, and he says, have you done Liberty before? And now, of course, I was 18 and suffering from something called young man's disease. And so I arrived, he said, can you do Liberty? I said, I bloody can. And he said, right, well, it's an hour lesson. For the first 10 minutes, you take your horse in and you show me what you can do. So I had Malik, my famous dapple grey. He's an amazing horse. And me and Malik galloped into that arena, bareback and bridleless, thinking we were, you know, hi-ho silver, and away. I went flat out on him, whistle stopped him, skid stopped, bowed him, stood on his bum, jumped down, laid him down, rolled him on his back, sat him like a dog, got him up, cantered him around me, made him rear, you know, Spanish walk, everything. anything, I threw the kitchen sink at Fred, turned round to look at him like, yeah, and Fred looked at me like I'd peed on his shoes. What followed was a dressing down like nothing you've ever seen. I won't go through the entire conversation, but it ends with me with tears and snot pouring down my face. And just let me just highlight how bad this is. Most people, I do clinics these days now as well, and you're really thinking, sessions up to an hour, and you're thinking, I need to keep this time on track, and I need to not run over, and all of those things. I was so diabolically bad that Fred said, I'm going to teach you twice a day, and you don't need to pay more. He is like, it's not because I like you, it's because I feel sorry for your horse. Okay? Now, I wasn't being mean to the horse, but I was getting the horse to do things, not doing things with the horse. I was pushing buttons and mechanically making things happen with no sense of connection. And so first thing that I would say for Liberty there is you can have a spectacularly trained Liberty horse that doesn't leave you and have zero connection, zero communication really going on. And what Fred taught me was that I needed to learn how to step down my energy, how to find a calm inside me. This led to me coming up with this idea of being an emotional anchor, opposed to letting my horse pull my emotion up or down, but trying to be a steady, relaxing, calming point that would attract them mentally and physically to that, to that spot. And that's probably the most valuable lesson I've ever had in my life as a horseman and as a person. So yeah, not a personality trait that made me better, but if I hadn't been that person, I wouldn't have had that interaction with Fred and wouldn't be where I am now.
I hate going after you. And you, actually. Can I just keep going first, please? Thanks. Okay, so I think if we do... we talked a little bit, we said 3 words yesterday, didn't we, with this one? So my first one was that I am a workaholic, which we then went on to discuss the pros and cons of being a workaholic and why one becomes a workaholic. But I think it's more like just such a drive to want to do things better, and attention to detail and that side of it. But I think we nearly all have an experience like Ben, in the sense I have a coach who I've worked with now for about 22, 23 years called David Hunt. And the first time that I had a lesson with him, I was probably 22. And he... It wasn't really my choice to have a lesson with him. It was my sister Hannah who really wanted to. And he came to ours to do a clinic, and I had several lessons with him. And the first lesson that I had, I'd done quite well in Young Riders, had a fairly successful career in that level, and it's sort of the horse that I was riding first had won at nationals and things. And similar, I was like, okay, we can show everyone how good we are. This is cool. And while I warmed this horse up, David sat silently in the corner of the arena, which I have since learned he does all the time. But I was a little bit intimidated by the silence, which really went on for quite a long time. And it would be fair to say that I cried a lot in that lesson as well. But it was because he was honest. And he was not trying to pull me to bits in any way, but he was just really honest about what he saw. And if he couldn't really understand what he saw, he was asking me why. And it kind of made me realise how much I didn't know rather than how much I thought I knew. And that definitely broke me for a short period of time. But it actually is what then made me want to learn so much more and made me realise how much more there was to learn and how every horse teaches you something different. So that, that desire to constantly try and be better, I think was instilled in me. Probably I had it there anyway, but David certainly helped nurture that within me. And, he's continued. He's not just a coach to me now. He really is a mentor. And occasionally he still makes me cry. But most of the time, he is the most incredibly inspiring person. And, he's definitely been a huge part of my journey. But, it doesn't come without sarcasm and dry humour. And, he'll say to you, "Have you got your phone on you?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And he'll be like, "Will you just give me a ring when you get to the other side of your leg yield?" Yeah, okay, point taken. Horse needs to be a little bit more reactive. But, it is that balance of, it's a very dry humour, but actually it really helps in a lot of situations. So he was a massive part of that. So what we said, the tendency to be a workaholic, to strive to always want to be better. And then I think compassion is something that I am very passionate about. And I think that goes both in the riding and the coaching. I think that we always have to look to try and understand both the horses that we're working with and the people that we're trying to help. And that is, a huge part of developing both ourselves and them.
I'd probably say 2 words. I would say curious. And, Wendy in the introduction talked about I have a podcast. And last year, I think it was one of the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. But I've had people say, "Boy, you're a really good podcast interviewer. Like, how do you practice being a good podcast interviewer?" And I said, "I don't practice and I don't try. I'm just curious about people, and somehow that curiosity draws their stories out." So that's one of the things. And I think, with horses, being curious about why they're not doing the thing you want rather than being mad that they're not doing the thing you want really helps with, Ben mentioned he was good at problem solving earlier on. So I think curiosity is a big, was it a trait or a character trait? Yeah, I think curiosity has been a big one that's helped me a lot. I didn't talk till I was 2. They actually thought I had a speech impediment. I couldn't talk. And then I started talking. I didn't shut up. And my favourite word was why. And here we are later. I make lots of money talking. And I think the other character trait would be sensitivity. And, I grew up in, rural Australia where boys don't cry, boys don't show fear. And I think I grew up a very sensitive lad and had to learn to hide that. And I heard it for a very, very, very long time. But it really helped me training horses because I really didn't have access to emotion, so I could be very black and white about things. It's not till later in life that I started actually, doing some work to have the sensitivity come out and embrace it. And I feel like now I can actually use that sensitivity and that, those emotions to actually help get along better with horses. But I do think for quite a long time, the extreme sensitivity that caused me to kind of shut down a bit actually was very, very helpful with horses, like I said, because I could be pretty even keel about a lot of things. And then the other thing, I don't know if it's a trait, but I didn't suck. Is that what I said before? I wasn't very natural with horses. Like, things didn't come naturally to me, so I had to struggle to learn things, and I had to understand something inside out and back to front and upside down before I could do it, which helped me when it come to teaching others, because I can give you an analogy. I can give you the same thing. I can tell you the same thing 500 different ways so that you get it. So it's kind of helped me be a good coach. And I have friends who are really, really talented, and they can't tell you what they do. They don't coach very well because they just have that ability. So I think the not quite sucking so bad was actually a helpful trait in having me learn how to be able to teach to people in a way they can understand.
We actually had discussions today about several horsemen that we rate or otherwise amongst us, and good horsemen that we felt sometimes also that their egos got in the way of them being great horsemen. So I wanted to ask you, we all have an ego of varying shapes and sizes. How is yours managed and by whom?
I'd like to open this with, I'm going to use a very small swear word. But I have a rule, okay? Rule 1. If you're a small person, plug your ears. Rule 1, don't buy into your own bullshit. Is my first thing. I meet so many people who, when they start to do well, that the legend takes over the person. And I think that's always been a big thing for me, trying to not, like you'll notice already this evening, I make fun of myself more than I try and make myself sound good. I think the horses will always keep you humbler than any person or anything. I think it's such an odd roller coaster, isn't it? Because there are times where everything's going really, really well, and what's the saying, pride comes before a fall, and you're wrestling against this idea of not wanting to be overconfident with yourself, but also not wanting to impose imposter syndrome on yourself for not actually giving yourself the chance to be happy with what you have achieved or what you have learned. So I think, the biggest thing that keeps my ego in check would either be my horses, or on the other side, my mother. So my beautiful mum comes with me to every performance. Now, my beautiful wife is also in here tonight, and she comes to every performance, but she's a bit much of a perfect wife in that she'll always find something to say was good. My mum is subtle like a brick through a window. And if I do something on stage and I think I've done brilliantly and I come off, she's like, by the way, that new act, awful. Hate that new music. That voiceover you did, terrible. Take it offline. And I think that makes the praise that I get from her more valuable. Because if she will shoot from the hip if she thinks it's not good. And I think that's such a brilliant thing to keep around. So if you have people that, they give you great praise, but they'll also, cut you off at the knees when they need to, they're actually the best people to have in your life, because the praise means more, and they actually, when they criticize you, they want you to grow.
I definitely 100% second that. I have a group of friends that are very quick to take the mick whenever they think I'm even vaguely getting above myself, which really doesn't happen, again, I think because of my family a lot. And as Ben said, horses keep you grounded. And, you have one horse that you might feel like you're flying, and then you have one horse that you really feel you can't even get right bend on. And you're like, still so much to learn and so much to do. But I think, and my mum's a little bit the same. I was at a European Championship once at Hartbury, and I was warming up, and I've always got on really well with my sister Hannah. We really do, we help each other, and we very rarely fall out. It is quite impressive. And she, helped coach me a lot when I was doing young riders and things like that. So I had Hannah at the warm-up, and I had Ian Woodhead, who was my coach at the time, at the warm-up. He was the team trainer as well. And my mum was up on the bank in the sort of the grandstand at Hartbury, and she rang my sister and was like, "Tell her to let its neck out." And it was like, even from 100 metres away on the bank, you can still tell me what I need to do. And I mean, funnily enough, she really couldn't help me warm up and things normally. We didn't really, it was that typical "oh, Mum, shut up." But, now, and actually even then, she was still one of the people that I would listen to so much and had a lot of respect for. And my dad has a face. We get on really well, but he has a face that if the face is out, it's like, back off, behave. So as soon as that face comes out, you're like, okay, wind your neck in, mate. So horses and the people that you have around you, your family and your friends, are such a massive part of it. And my team at home that help me on the yard as well, I think, they're great. And Kim, who's my show groom, she's a really good friend as well, and she's absolutely brilliant because she knows when I need a slap and when I need a hug, and that's a really big part of being able to perform when you need to perform, having people around you like that.
A number of years ago on American Idol, I wasn't on American Idol. My wife and I were watching American Idol, and they get to the top 10, they go to Hawaii, they do a concert, and then the next day they go in front of the judges and you see if you're going to make the top 5. And there was this one kid on there, and he was so good. He just didn't know he was good. And Lionel Richie said to him, being a star is having equal amounts of self-confidence and self-doubt, and keeping it somewhere in the middle. And my favourite Nuno Oliveira quote, if you guys know who Nuno Oliveira is, famous Portuguese classical dressage rider, he says your horse needs to be relaxed yet remain powerful. And it's all about that balance in the middle. For me personally, I've never really had a lot of self-confidence. Like everything, all the good things that have happened to me have actually, all the directions I've gone in that have been really good have mostly been at the suggestion of someone else. Like, hey, I think you should do this. I'm like, oh, do you think I could do that? So I've almost always been having to push myself that way. And then when you do get some success, then you got to kind of, rein it back in again. But for me, I'm probably the one that does all of that stuff. And right now I think I'm in a really good place in life where I'm really comfortable in my own skin. And I have a big presence, or maybe on social media or in the whatever space you want to call that. But I'm really comfortable there now to where I don't bite at negative comments. I can let it go. What's the saying? They say, the people that love you and the people that hate you, don't believe them because they're both wrong. Or the people that think you're great and the people that think you suck, they're both wrong. And I just feel like right now I am, at the age of 57, I finally got to the point to where I don't go one way or the other, but it's been a grind to get here.
You all seem, there's a great quote actually, a guy called Joseph Campbell, I'll paraphrase. It says, the treasure you seek lies in the cave you fear to enter. You all strike me as people who have an ability to act in spite of fears at times. Where do you think that comes from? And we've had discussions about whether bravery affects people as horsemen and whether that matters. Discuss.
I'll start that one off because these two are just crazy and will do anything. No, I mean, I think one of my biggest beliefs is that you have to play to people's strengths. And I've definitely come to terms with that a lot as I've got a little bit older and a little bit wiser. And, so an example of that is I have, we've got a lot of horses at home from sort of 4-year-olds that we're just backing through to our top competition horses. And I have a stable rider called Anna who helps me. And she always gets on the young horses first because I don't like doing that. One, because I really don't bounce like I used to, and I never used to bounce that well in the first place. But I know that I am not good at getting on those young horses at the very start and giving them the confidence that they need. And that is fine. I let somebody else, I help and I guide somebody else because I have the knowledge, but I don't have the mental capacity, if you like, different thing. And, she's really good at getting on them. And if they're a little bit losing confidence, she'll ride them forward. I'd probably stop them up. Not good. And the same thing when they go to their first show. When they go to their first show, I stand at the edge of the arena and I'm like, good girl, Burnsy, kick on. And then off she goes and it's great. And those horses have a positive experience. Whereas I know that, again, if I got on, I'd be there with one hand in my holy crap strap and the other one going, good pony, good pony. And, I think it's really okay to say, like, I'm super confident doing some things and I love doing some things. And there are other things that I'm not so good at. So I'm going to let somebody that's better at that side of it do it. And I think, if actually everybody in the world learned to play to their strengths, we'd live in a much better place. But I think, I think I am by nature a very competitive person. If I think I'm going to be really bad at something, I just don't do it. And if it's something that I'm going to be bad at but I can cheat at, then I'll do it and cheat at it. If I'm going to be, if it's something that I really can be competitive at, then I give it everything to be, and if a hurdle comes up, I find a way to get over that hurdle, but with the help of other people. That's the key.
So I think knowledge is power, and the more techniques you can learn, the more steps you can have in place, the less brave you need to be. Because I think a lot of the time for me, when I feel nervous, it's because I don't know what to do next. If I'm going to be on a young horse or working a new fresh horse that's a bit spicy on the ground or whatever, meeting a client's horse. Because I think that's something as well. You guys might not think it, but if I'm teaching a clinic and you walk in with some 18-2 thing flying like a kite on the end of a lunge line, and you've brought it because it terrifies you, and my job is to make it less terrifying, and you know the blummin' thing, and I don't, and you're like, here you go, Ben, da-da-da, and we have to put on this oh crap, why didn't I do a bow clinic for Shetlands? But it's, so how do we get past that? And it's the thing that can make us seem braver in those situations is because we've put ourselves with horses again and again and again, and we have if this happens, do that. If that happens, try this. You've all seen those funny little diagrams where it would say, do you like salty food? Yes, no, and then you go down and it's the next thing, and then it's the next thing. And to me, a lot of the time, that's the horse training. And the more you can arm yourself with the knowledge of what to do next, the nervousness will disappear. The other thing that I have is you can't be bored and scared at the same time. Right? Think about that. So for me, how did this work in my life? Well, I do an act which is called Roman riding, which is where you stand on horses. And when I first started standing on the team of horses, so I had 4 horses with not a stitch on them. And I'm standing on top of them, Roman riding them round. And it used to blummin' terrify me. Now, it just mildly scares me. And the way that I got past that is I made myself trot round on these horses, standing on them with no bridles, every day for half an hour. So I'd put a timer on my phone or my watch, and I had to be stood on them while they were trotting for half an hour. If I pulled them up, the clock stopped. If I fell off or got down, the clock stopped. And I did this for maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And the day I knew that I was no longer scared, I'm stood on the boys, Roman riding around. And then I found myself just checking a message. And then I was like, oh, I'm clearly not terrified anymore. And you could apply that to yourself. Like an easy example of that is, say you would love to jump, but the idea terrifies you. Put a pole on the floor and walk over it until, if someone said to you, will you walk that horse over that pole? You say, I'd rather slam my face into a breeze block wall. Then when you get that, trot over the pole. Then canter over the pole. Now make it a tiny, tiny cross pole. Before you know it, you've conquered the fear because you've drip-fed yourself the exposure to what terrifies you in a small amount or a small way. The final thing I'd say on this idea of how can you make someone braver is all of us here have a passion for horses, and we'd all make a plan on how we'd introduce our horse to a trailer or clippers or something that would scare them. So break down your own psychology like that. Drip feed yourself the same way you would your horse with a new environment or new experience.
I actually think there's 2 types of fear. The fear that you should be afraid of and the fear that you shouldn't be afraid of. And the fear that you should be afraid of is the real fear. That's the one where you could really get hurt. Most of the time, the fear we have is the fear you shouldn't be afraid of. For instance, does everybody here really like horses and like hearing about horses? Yeah? Okay, would anybody like to come up on stage in front of all these people and tell them about your horse? Okay, you're all probably like, ooh, don't pick me, don't pick me. But really, that's the fear you shouldn't be afraid of. You're in the best place possible to talk about horses. You have a receptive audience. This would be a very safe place. But your mind tells you it's not. But what I see a lot with what I do with horses is people who are not afraid of the horse they should be afraid of. You know what I mean? I had a lady at a horse expo in Australia many years ago, probably 10 years ago, say, we've watched videos of you restarting, like rearing and bucking and bolting, you know, warm bloods, a lot of times they were. Like, how are you brave when you get on them for the first time, after you've been through all the preparation stuff and this horse was a bucker or a rear or a bolter or whatever? And I said, I'm not brave. I'm not brave at all. I can't think of the word that I used at the time, but Ben just, I am disciplined, but that wasn't it. Sorry, I've lost the word. Oh. No, keep throwing out words that sound like that. This is the place where I should get really afraid. I'm on stage and I'm stuck for words. My jet lag's kicking in. But basically I said, I'm not brave. What you see is brave is having complete knowledge that this is actually safe. And, you know, it's what Ben talked about, having your preparation. So I think there is, like I said, the things you should be afraid of, the things you shouldn't be afraid of. Most of the time people I see are afraid of the things they shouldn't be afraid of and not afraid of the things that, like, I wouldn't be getting on that horse. That's probably the biggest part of that. And the other thing is, like Ben said, break it down. Like, where is the edge of your comfort zone? Doesn't matter where it is. Everybody's got a different edge to their comfort zone. But can you put your toe over the edge of that comfort zone and back in? And then leave it there for a second and get to where I can put my foot over the line and it doesn't bother me. So a number of years ago, I was in Australia doing a clinic and there was a lady there and she is from Sweden, but she lives in Australia now because she met her husband at the World Skydiving Championships when she was on the Swedish skydiving team and he was on the Australian skydiving team. And they do the jumps where they jump out in formation. And you've got so many seconds to do so many formations. And we were talking about skydiving, and she's had over 7,000 skydives. And she said, would you jump out of a plane? I'm like, well, I would with you, you know. And so she goes, oh, no, next year when you come back to do this clinic, we're going to go skydive. So I had actually 364 days to crap my pants. But I started preparing for it. I would go on my back step. And I would stand on the edge of that step and pretend that we're at 10,000 feet and that's the edge of a plane. And if you can visualize it well enough, your body goes, no, I am not stepping off this step. And I practiced that enough to where 364 days later, we do the clinic and then I'm going to go jump out of a plane today. And so we go, the office for the skydiving is in town. So we go to the office and they go, well, we're not sure we can do it yet because there's some cloud cover. You can't jump into clouds, so we've got to wait for the clouds to clear. So go for a walk. So we go for a walk for an hour around town. We come back. We walk in and they say, no, we can't do it today. There's too much cloud. And I'm like, we're just melted. And we walked out the door and she said to me, well, there's another place up the coast here a couple of hours we could go to. You want me to call them? And I go, no. She said, why not? And I said, because I'm not ready. And she said, but you were just ready half an hour ago. I said, I spent a year getting ready and then I let go of being ready, okay? Right now I'm not ready. But later that year I judged a horse thing in Las Vegas and they had us stay in the stratosphere. So the stratosphere in Las Vegas is that really big, tall, skinny thing, looks like a spaceship on top. You can actually jump off the side of the stratosphere and you're attached in something that's like a parachute harness, and it's not a bungee. Your cable's attached to a big fan, and as you jump and gain speed, that fan goes faster and it slows you down. And you're out there, it's nighttime, you're over the Las Vegas Strip, scariest thing I've ever done. But once I jumped off that, who's ever jumped out of a plane? Anybody here jumped out of a plane? Couple? You know, when you jump out of a plane, it's scary until you jump out, and as you jump out, you're like, oh my God, this is the coolest feeling ever. What was I ever afraid of? But after I jumped off the stratosphere, the next year, my son and I decided we're going to go skydive for the first time. I got up in the morning, had breakfast, we're going to skydive today. Wasn't a problem. And so it's just about breaking it down to steps till, you know, don't put your fear in the petrified state. Put it in a little uncomfortable state and work with that. I mean, that's how you work with horses. That's how psychiatrists work with people to get them over exposure therapy they call it. But that'll be my thoughts on fear.
I mean, I can see exactly how stepping off your back step is like stepping out of a plane. That's crazy. I'm impressed that you managed to convince yourself that that back step was 10,000 feet.
Let me ask you this: Do you visualize before you compete? Like
I do, yeah.
Really? But you're not at the Olympics. You're at home. How can that be the same?
It's not 10,000 feet though. 10,000 feet. I'm just visualizing how my test feels. I'm not visualizing 10,000 feet of
Well,
falling.
I wasn't visualizing. Yeah, the thing is, it's just a step. There's a really great story from the martial arts world where these guys came to this martial arts clinic for the thing for the weekend. They get there Friday afternoon, and it's mixed martial arts in the octagon thing, and they go in the octagon. There's 10 of them. They go in the octagon, and on the floor of the octagon is are you guys metric or imperial here in this country? Bit of both. There's a 6-inch wide, 6-inch square wooden beam across the floor of the thing, and it's 14 foot long or something. And he goes, okay, everybody get over here in a line, and we want you to walk across the beam. So everybody walks across the beam, and they think this is a warm-up exercise. Then he goes, now turn around and walk across it again. So they walk across it again, and after 10 minutes, they're thinking, this is a lot of warm-up exercise. They walk across this beam for an hour. And then he goes, okay, thanks, guys. Have a good rest. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And they're all like, this sucks. Like, we're supposed to be punching and kicking and fighting. The next day they come back and they all go on the octagon, and that same 6-inch square wooden beam, 14 foot long, is there, but is now on scaffolding 12 feet off the floor of the octagon. And he says, your job is to climb up there and walk across that beam. No one can walk across the beam. And he said, you could all walk across the beam yesterday because you were focused on the beam. Today you are focused on the drop beyond the beam. And the beam is the same. So it's, that's the visualization thing. So visualization is a really big part of getting over the fear of things. And he said, this is a mental sport. It might look like a physical sport, but if someone has you on your back, they're kneeling on your arms and they're punching you in the face, you cannot be thinking about being punched in the face. You've got to go, when his right arm comes back, I've got a chance to twist my hips, take my left leg, hook his elbow. You've got to be able to mentally focus on that thing. And that, if you look at mixed martial arts and you think they're tough guys, they're mentally tough is what they are. And I think that mental toughness is the thing.
In every sport, I believe.
So if you want to be as good with horses as Warwick, you need to skydive and cage fight.
Or just step off your back step for 364 days and pretend you went skydiving.
And then I bungee jumped after that too. And the last time I bungee jumped, so I've done it a few times, was in New Zealand. And it wasn't that hard to do. So I don't need to bungee jump again because I'm not paying that much money just to, I didn't enjoy the feeling of bungee jumping. Like, oh, that was a great feeling. Pushing yourself through something that you don't think you can do is or can be life-changing. I've been into ice baths for a number of years now. My wife's got into it in the last couple of years, but the ice bath is the same thing. Ice baths are amazing because your body pushes back getting an ice bath as much as it does jumping out of a plane. But jumping out of a plane, there is a risk. Small, but there is a risk the parachute might not open or something might happen. Ice bath, there is no way you're going to hurt. You get hurt, but your brain pushes back. So it's an exercise in override. Like you get that, you're going to get in. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. You are. Yes, you are. No, you're not. And I did it for 2 years every day, and then stopped doing it because it's like, oh, time for an ice bath. Walk down the hall. Gonna go get in the ice bath. So I kind of stopped doing it. But I feel like that has carried over into a lot of other things. And my wife got into the ice bath for one reason, and it wasn't the reason she ended up getting the most benefit out of it, but she's suffered from anxiety a lot. And she used to have panic attacks, basically has solved all of that stuff by doing ice baths. And so, yeah, I think whatever it is, not everybody's got the same fear, but finding your fear and taking small steps, like Ben said, to conquer that fear, it's not about the thing itself. It's basically about conquering yourself, really.
You're all going to go away feeling like you're invincible.
Be more Warwick.
As a charity, we believe that training a horse well actually helps enormously in securing its welfare, because everybody likes to have a well-trained horse around. What would you say are the fundamentals for you for every horse in terms of training?
It's going to be underwhelming, I think, to a lot of people, is this. You should be able to lead it in a normal head collar, and it should be easy. It should walk forward when you walk and stop when you stop. You should be able to tie them up, and they shouldn't pull back. You should be able to pick their feet out, put a rug on them, tack them up, get on without them walking off, and ride them round the arena in walk, trot and canter, as well as out on a hack on their own and with another horse. It's nothing special. We can do. And now, how could we improve your life with that horse? I believe that, you know, the stuff I do, the groundwork with the horses to build that level of communication can unlock new doors and unlock more exciting things and help you achieve that relationship, help you with that groundwork, help you with that rhythm work. But all of my horses that are, no, I tell a lie, all by bar one, he's a special case. When I bought him, I bought him from a very, very, very talented classical dressage rider, and she said, the reason I'm selling him to you is you have to promise me you will never ride him and you will never let anybody else ride him because they'll get hurt. So I was like, I believe you, Janine. I don't need to try. But everything else, all those horses have to be able to do those list of things, because what if I'm driving to the yard and I crash into a tree and then that's me? Gone. Like, do you all want horses that can capriole and rear and walk on their back legs and lay down? Not for everyday life. And so they're my essentials. It's the basic things that mean a horse will have friends no matter where it ends up in the world.
It's basically the fundamental lessons that you feel every horse should have.
So I think it's about respect and trust, and that is a two-way thing. So it has to go horse to rider, rider to horse. And, you know, I want all my horses to trust me, but I do also want them to respect me. So when I ask something of them, I'm going to get a constructive answer. But equally, I have to respect them and listen to them and what they're saying. I think that it comes back to, you know, to knowledge and developing knowledge, and that thing of I want my horse to feel comfortable making a mistake, in the sense that we're going to learn from it and develop. So I think it's such, you know, I mean, why do we all have horses? What is it that makes it an incredible thing to do? And for me, it's about the partnership that you have with them. And I think, you know, that relationship is like any relationship. And for me, it's that understanding, that trust, that respect that enables you to then develop each other as much as you want to be able to.
I don't think I need to read the question again. I was just pondering it in my head. For me, I think the first thing I want them to have, is that what it is? What?
Yeah. So basically, lessons that horses need in order to function in a way that humans enjoy having them around.
I think I would take the last bit of your sentence there, where humans enjoy having them around. I think the first thing is we want to have them enjoy being around humans. And that, for me, and it's, you know, if you read a book when you're 30 and then you read it when you're 40, it's a different book. And then when you're 50, it's a totally different book again, or see a movie or whatever. And for me, that's all getting much clearer to me. And it's all about them feeling safe around us. They don't want to be around us if they don't feel safe around us. And that because that feeling that there's different levels of not feeling safe around us, and on the extreme end they're anxious and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but on the more subtle end, my horse doesn't bend very well. Well, horses bend perfectly well when they feel safe. Like, they got an itchy nose, they reach around, they take their hind foot, they scratch them on the nose. And so I've really been, last quite a few years now, playing with how much training do I not have to do by continually working on them feeling completely safe around us. So I'm really big into nervous system regulation these days, and having them be in a certain nervous system state, which is a that state they're with, whether we're friends. They could be hanging out, they could pick up a canter and canter over there, and then come to a walk and be completely relaxed with no tension in that at all. And yeah, I would, for me, it's the feeling of safety.
Time flies very quickly. We're overrunning very slightly, but I wanted to ask Becky, how long will you continue to celebrate the marvellous things that have happened this year?
Well, I mean, I think it'll keep me going for a while. But, actually, in reality, we're just back to trying to get even better. I think I am very much a person that, as we have talked about already with horses, there are highs and there are lows. And I really do try, actually, and not go too high on the highs, because then I don't go so low on the lows. And keeping that even keel is something that's really, really important to me. So, I mean, there have been a couple of epic parties, but, for the most part, it's actually just back to life as normal and, get on, get better, keep developing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is always, I always think, hopefully Becky will see many other Olympics, but you've really got to celebrate the wins, absolutely.
Can I ask Becky a question? You can. You said you've had some parties and stuff. Have you actually, and the reason I'm asking you this is because I've got a very great crew of people that I've met, mostly from my podcast, who are very inspirational people. And every once in a while, that when I'm being quite humble or whatever, they'll sit down and they go, "Do you completely understand what you've accomplished or what you're accomplishing? Have you?" And I'm not talking about the parties and we did it, Paris 2024. Have you actually sat down and just took a breath and really thought about that? Or, because for me, it was a scary thought there for a while. Like, is what you actually did maybe a bit too big to sit down and
yeah,
sit
I mean,
with?
it's a funny one, because it really is quite surreal. You have points where you're just like, did it actually even happen? Because of the circumstances of it and how it really came around so quick. And, then actually we were in Paris we were away for 12 days, in Paris for 10. And then, you have this huge build-up, quite a lot of waiting around. We did one test, then we had 3 more days of resting, and then the team test and the final were all very quickly, overdone and dusted. Freestyle's done, and everyone's like, "Okay, bye, out of the stables, we need you gone now." And, you get home at 6:30 the next morning, having driven through the night to get back, and it's like, ooh, that was weird. But I think... I probably spent the most money on photos that I've ever spent in my life. I'm very lucky in that my travelling groom, and she's a really good friend, Kim, also an excellent photographer. But in Paris, she was not allowed to use her camera because the lens was too big, and she didn't have accreditation. So, you've got to have press accreditation if you have a camera lens over 20 centimetres long. There you go. That's something that you've learned tonight. I've had to actually buy photos. And I think I probably spent as much on photos as... I don't even want to think about it, because I bought them from that many different photographers. So my thing when I'm thinking, did this actually really happen, is to just go and have a look through those pictures. And... that is pretty cool, just to look at my amazing pony.
Great stuff. We're at the end of the first half. You've got about 20 minutes to buy last-minute raffle tickets and cake. We'll see you back at 8 p.m.